Welcome to Research Renaissance, presented by the Karen Toffler Charitable Trust. Embark on a journey into the forefront of cutting-edge brain science as we feature insightful discussions with a diverse array of guests, from early career researchers pioneering groundbreaking science to influential voices in investment communities, policymaking, and research institutions. Together, we delve into neurological diseases, their causes, treatments, and the quest for cures. Join us in advancing our understanding of the brain and addressing its ailments. Welcome to Research Renaissance. I'm Deborah Westphal, your host and guide through the fascinating future of the brain. Joining me today is Dr. Alexandra Touroutoglou, Assistant Professor, Harvard Medical School. Alexandra is also the Director of Imaging Operations at the Massachusetts General Hospital. Today's discussion is focused on brain imaging and non-invasive brain stimulation as a treatment for patients with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. So let's dive in. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you, Deborah. It's great to see you, to talk to you, and be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Well, you have a fascinating story, and you're doing some very interesting research. So I'm excited to have you on, and thank you for making the time. I would just like to just kind of start with, tell us a little bit about your academic journey. And I know you've studied in Greece, but how was that, and how did you get to the position that you're in? And tell us about what you do.
Thanks for asking this question. It's a long journey. I come from Greece and I study cognitive science there at the Aristotle University. Right after my PhD, I came to the US 15 years ago to accept a postdoctoral fellowship position at Harvard Medical School and Mass General Hospital in the field of neuroscience. When I came to Harvard, I had no experience in neuroscience or medical science, medical research whatsoever. This is because the field of neuroscience was non-existent in Greece at the time. So I had to learn neuroscience from scratch. I still remember the first time I saw an MRI image of the human brain at Mass General. I was scrolling through the brain and I was very excited for the opportunity that was given to me. And so in my experience doing science at Harvard and in the US in general is all about possibilities. And so now I'm an assistant professor of neurology at Harvard Medical School, and I work at Mass General Hospital as a faculty and director of imaging operations, the Mass General Frontotemporal Dementia Unit. And I have now dedicated the last 15 years to the study of brain aging and Alzheimer's disease. And my focus has always been on how we can translate basic findings from healthy aging to benefits for patients. So we are implementing innovative brain imaging tools with non-invasive brain stimulation tools to understand the mechanisms underlying the shift from healthy brain to the neurodegeneration of Alzheimer's disease, and ultimately use this information to contribute to effective treatments for Alzheimer's disease.
So what is a non-invasive brain stimulation? What is that? And can you describe what that kind of looks like to people that may not know?
So non-invasive brain stimulation, the tool that we're using is called transcranial magnetic stimulation. It involves a coil, a magnet that induces, it's a coil, 8-shaped coil that induces electrical current in the brain in a non-invasive way. And so by doing that, it induces neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to reorganize synaptic connections and form new connections. So we're using this tool to strengthen the function of brain regions and brain circuits that have been broken or been atrophied.
So you're using using electricity and electromagnetics through the coil that's probably fitted on someone's head, and that is stimulating growth of or regrowth of neurons or the connections of the neurons.
Yes, of the function of the neurons and the connections with other parts of the brain.
So that's super interesting. So how do you see this integration of brain imaging? Because I'm sure you're using technologies such as MRI and maybe more advanced technology with this non-invasive brain stimulation. And, how is this evolving for your research into Alzheimer's and dementia?
Mm-hmm. So when patients with Alzheimer's disease have memory or other cognitive symptoms, it is because specific brain regions are degenerating, are atrophied. With brain imaging, we can understand how brain atrophy causes symptoms. With brain stimulation, we can then use that information to target the atrophied brain regions to alleviate these symptoms. In all of our clinical trials, in all of our clinical research, we are using advanced MRI methodology for brain imaging. Using high resolution brain imaging, for example, we recently analyzed MRI scans from 200 patients, and we identified the Alzheimer's disease signature pattern of brain atrophy, the brain regions that are atrophied specifically in Alzheimer's disease. So in these patients, we also found that the degree to which memory is declined can be predicted by the atrophy, the thinning of this signature pattern of brain regions. So using MRI scans, we can develop reliable and clinically valid biomarkers of Alzheimer's disease-related neurodegeneration. And that's really an important point because we can use these biomarkers, we can apply them to an individual patient. So now I'll give you an example here. A patient came to us with progressive memory problems, and the clinical MRI was read as normal, but the PET scan showed abnormalities of brain function in the areas that control memory. Using the advanced MRI, research MRI technology that we have in our resources and computerized analysis of brain atrophy, in this specific individual patient, we were able to show atrophy in exactly the same regions that are controlling memory and can explain their memory symptoms. So the information is there in a high quality MRI scan. We just need to, have to be able to extract it. And so along these lines, as you said, we're also using, we are investigating the feasibility of using accelerated scans that can be acquired in 1 minute or less. And this basically shortens the scan session time, and this allows for more scans to be collected and increases the precision of the estimates we have of each brain's morphometry. Having a more precise estimate of each brain's morphometry is important because we can use this information with a non-invasive brain stimulation to target in a very specific, precise way and strengthen the regions that are atrophied in each individual. And so that's what we do in our all clinical trials. We enroll participants in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, and we treat them with transcranial magnetic stimulation, induce neuroplasticity in the affected areas. And by doing so, we hope we can improve symptoms. So it's advanced MRI technology and advanced non-invasive brain stimulation.
So you're not, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not on the side of trying to identify why these diseases happen. You're a little bit further down the stream that says someone has the symptoms. Now we're going to peer very precisely into their brain to see if there's this atrophy, especially around the area of cognition and cognitive, capability. And then your clinical trials is using this technology to see if there can be a way to kind of repair some of that damage. Did I sum that up correctly?
Very accurately.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when did these clinical trials start? Like how long have they been going on? And, where is that in the process of this becoming something that would be more mainstream therapeutic?
We're not quite there yet for it to be more mainstream therapeutic, but we and others have been seeing promising results from these trials. We started our trial in 2019, and so far the results are very promising.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you talked about these scans and the MRI scans or the PET scans that sometimes take a long time, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get, these images. But you're saying you can take a lot more pictures and very quick. What is that? Is that using like artificial intelligence? What is that? What is the real technology advancement to be able to take more pictures? And what's the value of taking more pictures? Is it that precision?
It's advanced MRI brain imaging. So that innovative protocols that now allow us to be able to collect these images with accelerated scans. Having these scans, first, we can reduce the scan time, which is important because it can reduce the cost. It can also reduce the movement. So we have more clear images and then precise. So because we have less scan time per image, we can add additional images or get additional information about the brain morphometry, which lead us to a better, more precise image.
So, Alexandra, a couple of years ago, you co-authored a paper on these elderly or early superagers, these people that continue to have really sharp memories and really kind of avoid this typical age-related declines. Tell us a little bit about that effort and what were the major findings?
Indeed, Deborah, one of my proudest accomplishments in brain imaging, in brain aging, was in 2016, when we were among the first research groups to identify a remarkable group, as you say, of older adults that are known as superagers. Superagers is an interesting phenomenon because they defy the inevitable. They have remarkable brains that they seem to refuse to age. They are over 65 years old, but they have brain structure and memory capacities of someone 30 or 40 years younger. So though brain decline with aging is common, we now know from the superaging studies that it is not inevitable. Now, in a series of studies, we used innovative brain imaging techniques, and we examined the inner workings of, if you will, of the superaging brain. And so far we have found 5 things that make superagers remarkable and different from their peers, the typical aging adults. First, the brains of superagers do not shrink. The superagers do not show shrinkage of brain areas that are involved with memory as other older adults do. Second, superager brains maintain stronger connections between brain circuits than other older adults. And this brain connectivity helps them remember better. Third, we found that superagers' brains are more resilient to real-world stressors that can contribute to developing dementia. They seem to be resilient to the changes that happen in the brain and that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. In people with Alzheimer's disease, the brain is marked by large accumulation of plaques, which are made of a protein called amyloid beta, and tangles, which are made of a protein called tau. Research is ongoing on superagers, but studies show that while superagers and their peers have similar levels of amyloid plaques in their brain, superagers do not show memory decline. So this it seems that, that superagers, this means that they are resilient to amyloid pathology. And then other studies have shown that they have lower levels of tau, which mean that their brains are more resistant to accumulating this toxic protein. Lastly, there are studies that show that there are genetic, personality, and lifestyle differences that can distinguish the superagers from their peers. There are studies that have linked superagers to genes, so part of the difference may be genetic, but there are also social factors also play an important role, because superages have been found, for example, to have larger social network sizes and more connections. So it's almost certainly a mix of both genetics and environment that makes superagers special.
How widespread do you think in the general population are these superagers? Is this quite common, or is this pretty rare?
We believe it's a rare phenomenon, Deborah. We need epidemiological studies to really answer accurately this question, but we believe it's a rare phenomenon.
It's interesting that you said it's not inevitable that that people, some people will get these, diseases such as Alzheimer's and dementia, and I've often wondered, is Alzheimer's and dementia, is it truly age related and it's inevitable, or is there behavior and lifestyle when we're younger that tends to lead to the manifestation of the disease? I just wonder if there's any thoughts that you have there.
So aging is a factor that contributes to Alzheimer's disease. Now, from superages, we see that, the superagers, continue to age. It's just that their brains are youthful. Their brains refuse to age. And so now we are looking into their characteristics to better understand what is it that makes superagers be resistant to accumulating this toxic protein, tau, that is related to Alzheimer's disease. And what is it that they make them be more resilient to the amyloid protein. So they might have the amyloid pathology, but not develop the symptoms that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. Now, about superages, we don't know if they started early in life as, super youngs and very, with superior memory abilities and very big brains with strong connections, or if they started like that. It's not clear if they started like that early on and they have a normal aging process, but still they are much better and they have sharper memory than their peers, or if they started at the same level as their peers, but somehow during their aging process, they developed mechanisms to compensate for the damaging effects of aging. This is a question that we're very interested in and currently investigating. We don't know the answer yet.
Well, if you did this in 2016, and since that time, it seems like there's more people kind of leveraging your work and your team's work to study these superagers, and because there seems to be more and more written about, the possibility of understanding that.
Absolutely, I'm very excited about that because it's a fascinating topic and it's a rare phenomenon. So we need definitely more research groups to be studying this phenomenon of superagers and to better understand their characteristics. And, use superagers to learn their secrets to contribute to effective treatments for Alzheimer's disease, to translate these findings for patients.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, personally, the older I get, the more fascinated I am about that. And it may just be what I read and what I'm exposed to, but, it's the whole process of aging may be changing. And so that's just really, really fascinating. So what are some of the more promising findings or breakthroughs that, besides this superager, effort that you kind of spearheaded with the team, what are other breakthroughs that you've encountered in your research and how are those offering maybe some hope for patients or families that kind of suffer with some of these diseases?
Right. So our research program is centered on the whole spectrum of aging, from the superagers and the brains that refuse to age to the Alzheimer's and the diseased brains. And I believe that by studying, the healthy brain and the superaging brain, you can get the secret. You can learn more about the secret of the resilience against Alzheimer's disease, and then, use that information to really help patients with Alzheimer's disease. And one exciting implication of our work is that memory decline can be avoided and dementia can be avoided. And so the question is how we can use that to help older adults reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease. The discovery of superagers provided us with a unique opportunity to target specific brain regions for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. And that's one of the things we learned from superagers, is that the size, the thickness, and the connectivity of certain brain regions can predict their sharp memory. So this information helped us to design a brain stimulation study where we induced neuroplasticity in participants to effectively mimic the brains of superagers. So we're trying to improve connectivity in the brain, in the same areas, in the same key superaging areas, potentially reducing the memory symptoms in Alzheimer's disease. So we rely again on the technology of transcranial magnetic stimulation to target the key superaging regions, improve their function, bring patients closer to normal cognitive function, and typical older adults closer to being a superager. The study is ongoing, but the preliminary findings are very encouraging.
Is the treatment, and maybe you can't answer this, but the treatment with stimulating the brain as treatment, does that have to then continue on for the rest of their life, or is this just a finite amount of time to repair those connections and then they can continue on with their life without continuing the treatment? Or is this something that they will always have to have treatment for?
We don't know yet the duration of the treatment. We're still trying to understand how many sessions one might have and the duration of the benefits that they have from the treatment. This is something that we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah, and I would imagine that every person may be a little bit different in that spectrum too. Is that true?
Absolutely. Not every patient. This I can tell you, that patients that are more advanced are less, treatment is less effective. So the more atrophy you have in your brain, the less available neurons there are to strengthen and to improve their function. So the less effective the treatment will be for patients with Alzheimer's disease.
So you talked about this advanced MRI in the ability to take more pictures and quicker, and that this could reduce costs. Is there, when you kind of think about the future of that technology, do you think it will ever be to where there's more kind of proactive, younger in somebody's life to image the brain to see if the disease is starting to manifest, so that we could we can capture it a little bit sooner? Or will that, how do you see maybe that advancement?
Well, with the advancement of artificial intelligence, it has been shown that with machine learning models, we can predict dementia up to a decade prior to the onset of the disease by analyzing longitudinal data. So advanced brain imaging can definitely help enhance, diagnostic accuracy, but also make more accurate prognostication.
Yeah, that's amazing because, and then if you catch it a little earlier, then maybe you can maybe treat it and repair it with this other kind of technology that you're talking about. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. You know,
And not only that, one of the most frequent questions we get from patients at the dementia clinic is, when will I lose my independence? Is my disease going to progress fast or not? And it is known that the timeline of clinical progression is highly variable across patients with dementia. But the field currently lacks methods of prognostication. There's a critical need to develop these methods, brain imaging methods, because an estimate of the amount of time during which a patient may be able to function independently would be invaluable for developing a personalized care plan, including treatment options, major life decisions, safety assessments, and support planning. And so, in one of our studies, we used a new imaging method, and we wanted to predict when someone is going to develop Alzheimer's disease. And we did that by looking at the MRI scans from early visits to the clinic. So patient came to the clinic with memory problems. They were at a very early stage. And so we looked at these MRI scans, and we were able to determine that it needs individual relatively greater atrophy in specific brain regions can predict faster progression to dementia. And so biomarkers like that, imaging using advanced imaging technology, have the potential for great clinical impact because clinicians can use them to assess how fast a patient with Alzheimer's disease, the disease is likely to progress, which can lead to personalized prognostic algorithms in this patient population. It's a nice example of how translational research can bring relatively straightforward computational analysis of structural and functional brain imaging into clinical practice for the purposes of understanding heterogeneity that we talked about among individuals and among patients, and prognostication in Alzheimer's disease. That they can then, clinicians can use that information to make appropriate treatments, aiming to maximize the well-being of the patient and their families.
yeah, that just feels more hopeful. If you can personalize by seeing inside someone's brain and kind of tracking that and kind of predicting how their disease will evolve and manifest. It sheds a little bit more hope on, possible treatments or at least a pathway forward with living with the disease. So you talked a little bit about artificial intelligence, and we hear a lot about it in the news. What do you anticipate these emerging technologies such as, artificial intelligence or machine learning or advanced analytics will have in this whole field of neurology and dementia research?
Well, artificial intelligence algorithms are, incredibly effective at monitoring, evaluating large amounts of data, and spotting patterns. And when they are combined with very effective computer techniques, artificial intelligence tools can enable us to determine and evaluate the disease risk that we talked about based on individual data. So it can enhance diagnostic accuracy. AI can also help us determine the future which biomarkers are mostly relevant to Alzheimer's disease. And this capacity can lead to even earlier and more accurate diagnosis of conditions like Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. Then machine learning models can also predict the disease progression that we talked about earlier. So it can also help tailor treatment plans to individual patients because the artificial intelligence tools can analyze unique clinical history and the genetic data and other biomarker profiles. And this personalization can improve treatment efficacy and minimize also the side effects. But then also, AI can help us better understand the disease mechanisms. One of the hurdles in research of Alzheimer's disease is that we don't fully have a comprehensive understanding of the causes of the disease. And AI can analyze complex interactions within genetic, molecular, and environmental data that can uncover mechanisms of neurodegenerative diseases that have been difficult to understand using conventional methods. We in our lab, we have recently harnessed these capabilities to detect Alzheimer's disease by analyzing patients' speech. So this is a project that is led by Dr. Nagin Rezai with Brad Dickerson. And so we asked the question whether a change in language, in speech, can be a tell sign of Alzheimer's disease. We focus on, I'm just giving you an example here, we focused on primary progressive aphasia, which is a type of Alzheimer's disease that is associated with language symptoms that presents as the first symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. Unlike memory issues, patients with primary progressive aphasia struggle with finding words. So using AI, we developed a classifier that achieved 97.9% accuracy in predicting this type of Alzheimer's disease from healthy controls. And, early identification of primary progressive aphasia can have important implications for the treatment, for Alzheimer's treatment, because patients that may be candidates for anti-amyloid or anti-tau therapies, it is important to be in these trials at an early stage, because we know that these therapies are believed to be more effective in the earlier phases of the disease. So, and I can see in the future that this whole process becoming even more efficient.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you image the brains too of these people that you're asking about? The language in that. So are you also looking inside their brain to see what's happening in there? And how do you correlate that?
Yes. You're just describing a research project that we are looking into, of course, with our computerized analysis of MRI. We are able to quantify the atrophy in brain regions that are involved in language. And we have shown with brain imaging that it is a set of brain regions that comprise the language network of the brain. And when this language network is atrophied, or, then language symptoms appear. And so the stronger, the thicker this regions, the greater thickness, the greater the size of brain regions in this network, the better the language processing and language function. So we are able to show that there is a relationship between the certain brain regions in the language network and specific language symptoms in this patient population. In a similar way that we show that for the memory issues, that problems that the typical Alzheimer's disease patients experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really, really cool, because being able to correlate that, again, back to this precision possibly of therapeutic ways to take care of this or to repair is pretty fascinating. So I know, Alexandra, you recently were rewarded this Rising Mentor Award from Massachusetts General Hospital. Tell us a little bit about what that is and what does that mean to you? Because I know mentorship is very important to you. What does this mean to you?
Indeed, Deborah. This was one of the most meaningful awards for me, and I was deeply honored to receive it. And it was a wonderful ceremony at Mass General. I believe mentoring is a two-way street. Trainees are being mentored by mentors, but also, Deborah, we as mentors are being trained by our trainees. And I have been particularly fortunate to have great mentors when I was a trainee, but also very successful trainees. And it is their successes that inspire me to do even more. I just love mentoring.
What gives you the greatest joy when you think about your mentoring?
You know, when you see when a young postdoc will come and you will basically help them work on a research project, teach them all the tools, and then you see that person develop and have their own, they start thinking critically, and then they come with an innovative idea that they want to pursue for their career and develop their niche. It feels so fulfilling. It's so satisfactory. So it's unique. It's a unique experience.
Yeah, you can hear it in your voice, the kind of the passion there. What advice do you offer any kind of aspiring researchers or clinicians that are wanting to pursue a career in neurology, specifically around these diseases of Alzheimer's and dementia? Because research is not an easy career path. There's a lot of effort and sometimes a lot of unknown as far as support and such. But what advice do you give people?
Particularly to clinicians and researchers that want to go to our field, I would say, despite the significant progresses and all these advancements that have been made in the last decade, there's a lot more to learn about the function of the brain and dysregulation of the function of the brain in Alzheimer's disease. Many critical unanswered questions, from understanding the causes of Alzheimer's disease to drug discovery and effective treatments. So I would say that it remains one of the most hot topics in neurology, and one that it is very fulfilling to contribute to.
And encourage them to just kind of stick it out and just be resilient themselves.
Be gritty.
Be gritty. Yes, exactly. So I know you're also very active in bridging research that's going on in Greece and what you're doing here. And I know I've talked to you before about that pride of where of your home country, but tell us about why it's so important for global collaboration, and why is that important to you and to others studying neurology and neurological diseases.
Mm-hmm. Global and interdisciplinary collaboration is, bringing science together, exchange ideas is so important. One of the first thing, Deborah, that I learned when I came to the US is how to collaborate. And I witness every day the incredible value of interdisciplinary collaboration. One of the amazing opportunities we have here is the collaboration across the Charles Ribbon in Boston between Harvard and MIT. Clinicians from Mass General and engineers from MIT come together in this interdisciplinary collaboration that is focused on translational medical science and engineering. And you can see that it is so important. Alzheimer's disease recognizes no borders, and neither do our scientific accomplishments and solutions. So global collaborations is very important because it's an exchange of ideas, but from different perspectives, and that's invaluable. But I have to also tell you that when it comes to Greece, I have one more reason why I'm very interested in, bringing together Greek scientists to network and collaborate. It is because I want to help the young scientists that come or they want to come to the US, like I did 15 years ago, I want to support them during their first steps that are critical in pursuing science in the US.
You mentioned that when you started and you went to school in Greece, that they didn't really have any focused area in neurology. Mm-hmm. Do they now? Has that advanced? And are there universities in Greece that now offer that?
In neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience.
Neuroscience, yes.
Many, yeah. So there have been, nowadays, there have been some definitely significant progress since I left. And I hope I was able to contribute to some of this progress with some programs that, Fulbright Foundation and International Institute of Education and Stavros Niarchos Foundation in Greece brought me back to Greece a few years ago to kind of transfer the knowledge that I gained here to talk about this field and help build protocols and develop protocols and build the curriculum there and really see the young neuroscientists there. And that was very fulfilling to me and very successful experience. So a lot of progress have been made in this field. Now people, when young researchers come here and they join the field, they have the tools, they know how to analyze brain data, brain imaging data. So it's definitely, things are much more better than it was 15 years ago.
And I'm sure your influence there has really kind of helped that and accelerated that. So I'm sure there's people that really appreciate you doing that and making those connections. So as you think about the next maybe 5 or 10 years, what are you the most hopeful for concerning your research or this area of research that you find yourself in? What is exciting and what are you the most hopeful for?
I think both of our research lines, there are areas where I can see in the future, producing findings, exciting findings that have broad implications for aging and Alzheimer's disease. From the super aging line of research, I really think that we will be, the more we study, we and others are studying this phenomenon, we will be able to uncover their secrets and advise to older adults how to stay young, how to have a healthy brain. And then for the Alzheimer's disease treatment, clinical trials that we run, I think that in the future, these treatments will be much more effective with the advancement of technology. Nowadays, we used to have a coil that was placed manually. Now we have robotically controlled coil that is placed in a precise way in each individual brain, and that helps to target the region in the most precise way. I can see in the future, while stimulating the brain, to be able to image the brain, to use computational electrical field modeling engines that can allow us to visualize the changes that are happening in the brain circuit, in the broken brain circuit that we are stimulating. So I think we will have the opportunity to see many of these exciting findings coming through.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, and that I'm excited for it too. And maybe it will come quicker than 10 years or 15 years. So
I really believe that research is moving so quickly that we're getting even closer to the day when we can delay or even prevent Alzheimer's disease and dementia.
It's a great message of hope, which I very much appreciate. We talked a pretty broad spectrum of topics here. So how would people get a hold of you, Alexandra, if they're interested in, your research or maybe volunteering for clinical trials? I don't know if you do that, but how would people get in contact with you?
They can email me, Harvard Catalyst, Alexandra Touroutoglou. They can find information there. The frontotemporal master neurofrontotemporal dementia unit information there for those that are interested in patient, in volunteering for research with patients.
I really appreciate your time, Alexandra. This has been fascinating. It's a different kind of look at therapeutics and treatment. And thank you for your dedication and your passion for what you do today, but also how you're shaping the future through the people that you're mentoring. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for a great discussion. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for joining Research Renaissance. For more information and to stay updated, subscribe for more episodes and visit our website at tofflertrust.org. Feel free to call us if you have any thoughts, suggestions, or just want to find out more about the Karen Toffler Charitable Trust. Until we meet again, onward and upward.